The movie begins in December of 1941, just outside Moscow. Red Army Junior Lieutenant Nikolai Ivashkin is driving a ramshackle truck and trailer with a young private beside him. Just then, a German Panzer III tank appears over a hill and opens fire on them. Nikolai, who has been trained as an armor officer, maneuvers skillfully and they escape unscathed. Upon reaching their destination, he comes to understand that the Germans have already destroyed much of their shelters and killed many people. The Russian army realizes how much of a loss they are currently in. The captain then introduces Nikolai to the last team alive, composed of a group of soldiers who specialize in operating tanks. Nikolai is assigned to command a damaged T-34 tank, whose commander was killed, with orders to delay the Germans' advance with only the single tank and a small number of supporting infantry. Nikolai is a new recruit to the tank division, but knows his tanks very well. He pushes the crew to be shipshape and ready for battle, even though morale is low. But instead, everyone mocks and laughs at him in disbelief. Reason being is that only one medium tank remains and is currently damaged. Nikolai, on the other hand, does not care less and pushes through as he formulates a plan of interference towards the Germans, using the remaining T-34 medium tank. The next day, Tank Commanding Officer Klaus Jaeger and his German platoon are spotted arriving with their tanks in the village, where they are taking shelter. Currently in hiding, Nikolai instructs his crew to fire towards the designated area as soon as the Germans reach the place. In a flash, two of the German tanks are blown away with missiles. Not long after, Klaus discovers their location, and another battle breaks out as missiles launch one after another from all corners of the entire village. Nikolai and his crew cleverly destroy a number of German tanks. Unfortunately, the Germans kill one of their soldiers who happens to be the controller of T-34. One of their crewmates, named Stepan Vasilyonok, takes over and attempts to get them all out of the village. The Russian and German tanks go face to face and start firing at each other, but in a final duel with Jaeger's command panzer, both tanks are disabled and half the Russian tank crew is killed. Both Nikolai and Stepan survive. Nikolai attempts to take a very injured Stepan to a safe place, but is shot and captured by Klaus in the process. 3 years later, in 1944, a group of Nazis are seen taking Jewish prisoners to their camp in a train. The assigned commander orders everyone to kneel down with the help of an imprisoned Russian translator named Anya. One man ignores the orders and agitates the commander. This man is none other than Nikolai, who seems to have lost his senses after being shot. He attempts to escape 7 times, but ultimately fails. The commander gains intel of his attempts and decides to lock him in a special block, where they torture Nikolai for weeks. Subsequently, Klaus is on the move on shaping his tank battalion to be as strong as the Russian army. Klaus, now a Standartenführer, gains permission from Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler and General Heinz Guderian to recruit an experienced tank crew from Soviet POWs in a concentration camp to act as opponents for training the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend. The Russians are at the German border, and urgent steps need to be taken to train the Germans who will repel them. Nikolai has been a prisoner for 3 years and has refused to give his name, but Klaus recognizes his photograph from the camp records. Klaus takes notice of his bravery, therefore choosing him as the best among the prisoners. He meets Nikolai in his cell together with Anya, where Nikolai learns of his intentions. Klaus offers Nikolai another chance to live by commanding him to train the German soldiers. Nikolai refuses his offer, urging Klaus to threaten him into killing Anya, which then prompts him to agree. The next morning, all prisoners are gathered for the selection. The Germans bring Nikolai in to choose the best soldiers. Nikolai recognizes many of his comrades' faces. He sees Stepan, who also survived that night. Nikolai picks out 3 tankers from the POWs: driver Stepan, loader Serafim Ionov, and gunner Demyan Volchok. After the selection, they take the prisoners to a different place and assign them the T-34 Russian tank they captured, which was able to destroy many of the German tanks. Klaus commands Nikolai to repair the tank within 1 week. At first, the other tankers refuse to take part, but Nikolai says he has a plan to escape. Anya gains insight of this plan while standing behind. The Germans first order the Soviet prisoners to clear out the rotting and burned bodies from inside the tank, but as they remove the bodies, they unexpectedly find a small number of remaining live shells and hand grenades. Nikolai seizes this opportunity and persuades Klaus into arranging a proper burial for their dead soldiers. After getting his permission, they hide the rounds under the clothes of the dead bodies, bringing the bodies for burial on an open field and bury them. Days continue to pass, and everyone works on repairing the tank while progressing on Nikolai's escape plan. On the other hand, Klaus is accompanied by Anya, visiting from time to time to get more information from Nikolai regarding the war. Nikolai and and his crew successfully repair the tank. Klaus calls for a training exercise and comes with his companions upon hearing the news. Nikolai and his team demonstrate how the tank works and show them how the tank functions during war, which impresses the present Nazis. Klaus, however, doesn't trust the Soviets and orders anti-tank mines laid around the entirety of the training grounds. Anya overhears this information and tells Nikolai. Anya convinces Nikolai to let her escape with them, as only she can steal a map from Jaeger's office showing a safe road out of the area and gain a pass letting her out of the camp for a day. The next morning, Nikolai and his team return to the field where they hid the armor-piercing rounds and carefully sneak the rounds back in the tank. They promise each other to stay together, mentally conditioning themselves for the coming battle. Meanwhile, Anya quietly slips into Klaus's room using her entry pass and cautiously steals the map. She leaves unnoticed by the Nazis who are in the middle of training. After retrieving the munitions, Nikolai, together with his team, create a smokescreen to mask their movements. They start attacking the German tanks right after and targets Klaus and his German soldiers at the tower. Klaus and Guderian survive the attack. The oblivious Nazis finally gain awareness of the situation, but before they can even respond, Nikolai boldly charges ahead the T-34, storming through the training grounds car park, crushing many of the officers' staff cars, and breaks through the main gate, avoiding the minefield. During the attacks, Anya anxiously waits for Nikolai's T-34 at the bus stop. She beams at the sight of the tank coming closer, proving them victorious of their plan as she contentedly boards the tank. With her map, Nikolai plots a course toward Czechoslovakia and back to the Red Army's lines. The Nazis on the other side tirelessly try every possible way to catch them. They command their entire army to chase down and capture Nikolai and his team. They estimate the amount of fuel and seal the tank has taken and utilize it to track their possible location. Right at the moment, Stepan informs everyone in the T-34 of the low fuel, where Nikolai suggests for him to head towards the nearest town as soon as possible. The locals in the said village panic at the sight of the tank. Nikolai and his team take this advantage and are able to grab some food, clothes, and other essential goods. They immediately leave soon after, coming across a German tank on the way. They fortunately survive the shots as they opt out from driving on the main road and instead aim for the route that leads to the forest. Klaus comes to learn everything and takes action himself in searching for the T-34. He boards his plane and flies to search through the forest from above. He effectively finds Nikolai and his team's whereabouts before sunset. Clueless of the fact, Nikolai decides for everyone to stay in the forest. They dive into the nearby river, keeping all the worries aside for a while as they enjoy a moment of freedom. During the night, they resume planning their movement for the next day. Nikolai suggests that they should drown the tank into the water and split up, believing they have a better chance of survival if they separate, but the crew insist on staying with him. Anya grows tense from hearing about the war. Seeing her worry, Nikolai approaches her and consoles her for the first time. Moreover, he confesses his feelings to Anya. At that time, Klaus and his soldiers take advantage of the darkness and enter the forest. They surround the entire area where Nikolai and his crew are hiding. Nikolai and his team hear a sound which alarms their senses and quickly escape. On their way, Nikolai gives the map to Anya, telling her to go to the nearby town and take shelter there as they say goodbye. He asked her to wait for them until the next night. Ways from there, Nikolai together with his team successfully reach the nearby village before sunrise. Much to their dismay, they notice a German trolley, coming to a realization that they are completely surrounded by the Germans. They decide to take a shortcut, cleverly dodging along with the attacks of the German tanks from both sides. They plot an escape by breaking through a wall leading to a narrow lane. Nikolai and the rest of the crew in the T-34 recklessly charge through the narrow lanes, only to face another German tank on the other end. Both tanks fire at each other, favoring the Russians during the blast-off. From a distance, Anya hears the blast, filled with worry and distress for Nikolai and his crew before she starts walking again. On the battlefield, Nikolai's crew sights another tank aiming at them, but before it attacks them, someone fires at the tank first. This happens to be done by Volchok with his half-destroyed tank. This unexpected move from Volchok leaves Nikolai and Klaus utterly surprised. Volchok continues to attack more Germans, but Klaus advances in a snap. Before Volchok can fire at his tank, Klaus injures him and blows off Volchok's tank in return. Nikolai and his crew reach a point of demotivation upon witnessing this, but Nikolai persists not long after. He again tells his comrades to not lose hope and reminds them of their promise to each other. He also warns his team of the last remaining German tank, which Klaus is maneuvering. Nikolai signals them their attack and both tanks fire at each other, initially misaiming. With only one armor-piercing round left, Nikolai comes out of the tank and briefly talks to Klaus. Klaus throws down his glove, inviting Nikolai to a duel. Nikolai grabs the opportunity to request a wish for the last time, where he asks for 5 minutes to pick up his injured comrade, Volchok, and be with him at their last war. After hearing his last request, Klaus is stunned but eventually agrees to it. Both tanks then move outside the town and face off over a narrow stone bridge across the river. Nikolai and the T-34 are at a disadvantage, only with an option of dodging Klaus's every attack. As the tanks charge at each other, Klaus fires several shots at the T-34 but fails to disable it, while Nikolai waits to fire their last shell directly through the driver's vision port. As in 1941, the two tanks fire simultaneously, badly damaging but not disabling each other. Out of ammunition, Nikolai orders Stepan to ram Klaus's tank, pushing it to the edge of the bridge. Klaus crawls out of his Panther while Nikolai aims a stolen rifle at him. Klaus shouts for Nikolai to shoot him, but Nikolai offers his foe mercy. Klaus extends his hand, and the two adversaries exchange a handshake of respect. Nikolai tries to pull Klaus to safety, but Klaus lets go, allowing himself to fall to his death as his Panther tips over the bridge and plummets into the river. With their tank's treads disabled, the crew reunites with Anya outside the town, carrying the wounded Volchok on a makeshift stretcher, and they make their way towards the Russian lines on foot. The movie ends with a dedication to the Red Army tank crews of the Great Patriotic War, all of whom earned the status of heroes for fighting against the invasion of their country. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.